What's going on, guys? MariK here, and today we're going to be taking a look at the original Star Wars Battlefront that came out in 2004, the game that started it all. With the release of the Battlefront Classic Collection just 2 weeks away, we thought we'd go ahead and go over the older games for those people who haven't played them before, or for those who need a bit of a refresher course. Today we're going to be taking a look at the various classes in the game and just going over a brief overview of what each class has at its disposal and which class is best within each faction. As we go over each class, we're going to be starting with what I think is the worst faction for each class. So we'll be starting from the bottom with the worst of each class all the way going up to what I believe is the best of each class. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at the heavy class. At the bottom of the list is the Rebel Rocket Trooper with 2 rockets in the tube, 8 in reserve. It's got the default blaster pistol as its sidearm, 3 thermal detonators for infantry, and 4 landmines that you can place in any location you wish. What puts the Rebel Rocket Trooper at the bottom of this list is the fact that even though it does have the most ammo out of all of the heavy classes, you are forced to fire 2 rockets simultaneously every time. And that just eats up your ammo reserve so fast. If you're using the Rebel Rocket Trooper specifically against enemy vehicles, then it's not that bad because you will be just aiming them at the vehicle. Hopefully you don't miss and end up wasting a rocket. But against infantry, it can be hit or miss because you're going through so much ammo just to take out infantry, and it just feels like your ammo ends up getting wasted because you're not getting the most use out of each individual rocket. It does give you the possibility of taking out more enemies in one cluster, but overall I feel like 1 rocket is sufficient enough to do that, and so firing 2 rockets at one time just is not ideal, and is why the Rebel Rocket Trooper is at the bottom of this list. Up next is the Droid Rocket Trooper. It has a total of 7 single fire rockets in the tube, the default blaster pistol for a sidearm, still 3 thermal detonators, and 4 landmines. The downside to the Droid Rocket Trooper is that outside of vehicles, there's not really any reason to use this class. I mean, you can use it because rockets will still take out groups of enemies, but ideally there are just better ways of dealing with multiple enemies than the Rocket Trooper. It's slow, it takes forever to reload, and while the rockets can be one-hit kills if they are direct hits or if they do enough splash damage, it just doesn't feel like it's a good use of your class option. Next up on the list is the Imperial Shock Trooper. Again, 7 single-fire rockets in the tube, the default blaster pistol for your sidearm, 3 thermal detonators, and 4 landmines. While the Imperial Shock Trooper does have the exact same loadout that the Droid Rocket Trooper has, because the Rebels have the Wookiee Warriors on their team, the Rocket Trooper serves a bit more purpose than just taking out enemy vehicles and enemy turrets, because the rockets do more damage, and the Wookiees have a much higher amount of health than the other classes in the game. So it gives you a bit more of a reason to choose the rocket over another class. There are still other ways to deal with the Wookiees, but the rocket does such a large amount of damage that it gives you another option for dealing with them, and the droid class just doesn't have a target equal to what the Wookiees are on the Rebels. All the clone troopers have, more or less the same amount of health, and you don't have this big tank that requires a weapon like a rocket to take out on just, single infantry. At the top of this list, we have the Republic ARC Trooper. 2 single-fire rockets in the tube, 6 in reserve, default blaster pistol for your sidearm, 3 thermal detonators for infantry, and 4 landmines. The ARC Trooper is at the top of this list for a number of reasons. The first one being that you have 2 single-fire rockets in the tube, meaning that you are a little more ready to fire off rockets without wasting them, like you would be with the Rebel Rocket Trooper. The other reason is that the droids have the Droideka, which not only has more health than a standard droid does, but also has its shield as well. And having a way to deal with a Droideka that you wouldn't normally have with, say, the basic soldier class really gives you a reason to use the ARC Trooper. The third and final reason, and the most important, is that this is the original ARC Trooper design that we saw with the 2003 Clone Wars animated series before George Lucas went and made the newer Clone Wars series. That's going to be it for our tutorial on the heavy class. Unless you're playing on a map that is very vehicle heavy, I wouldn't bother playing as the heavy class personally. If you're playing as an Imperial, you can use it to take out Wookiees, and if you're playing it as the clones, you definitely want to have those on your team to take out Droidekas. But honestly, it's not the best class to use, and when you start to get overwhelmed by infantry, it's really not the best weapon to have in your hand. Star Wars Battlefront Classic Collection comes out in just 2 weeks, so we hope to see you on the Battlefront.